Hello, everyone. Here we are in week 3 of Profit Zen, and we are in week 3, part 3 of enrollment. And in part 3 of 4, we are talking all about flow. Your enrollment flow. Well, what is enrollment flow? And I kind of said it's from when someone is interested to someone gives you their credit card. That's pretty much what it happens. Stuff happens, and it's really important to understand what happens during that time, right? So I really thought that from interest to client, and it's an interest to client because, when, as I've said to you, when you get to that final enrollment conversation, if that's what you're doing, that final conversation, it should be pretty much a natural next step. I mean, there are some varieties, but for the most part, it should be a natural next step to work together. Because of the flow and things happening, they're not a fit for you, and you're not a fit for them. And again, that's perfectly fine. Maybe they're in that 30% of that 5 groups that we talked about in part 2. That's perfectly fine. It's just good to know, right? It's if you want them to kind of part ways, you just would prefer, it's easier to part ways or somewhere along the flow than going to that last conversation, right? I'm not saying it's not going to happen all the time, but this is why it's important to really understand what is your flow. So I would thought the best way for me to work through this and teach this to you is to use my own flow, because pretty much anyone who's in a service business has a similar type of flow. As again, 90% of my clients over the past almost 13 years have been in the service-based industries. And when you're in a service, it's pretty similar. So I'm just using my flow. And by the way, you all have been through my flow, right? So your flow and your flow of enrollment is really about getting to know you and you getting to know the person who's in the flow with you, right? That's all it's about. And we also are providing, let's call it, exit strategies along the way. We're providing opportunities to no longer go along, continue on for whatever reason, okay? So that's really all it's about. So when you understand the steps of your flow, then we can figure out how to make sure that it's effective all the way through, right? So this is my flow. It begins with, hello. Oh yeah, nice to meet you. However they come to me, however you came to me, same things, like hello. They raise their hand, like, oh yeah, I'm interested. Great, that's awesome. Let's go. So it starts with hello. And then the next thing that happens in my flow, and again, you've been through this, so you can think back. Just think back and you'll say, oh yeah, I see that. And even from hello, we can figure out if it makes sense or not, whether it comes as an email, whether it comes as a Facebook message, whether somebody calls me or texts me, however the hello comes to me, or I come to them because someone told me to go to them. And this is for a one-on-one. And the flow that we're focusing on for the purposes of this is really for a one-on-one or a small group, or for getting to that individual conversation, okay? It's hello. And then, so what do? I said, okay, let's talk. And it's like, hop on my calendar, right? And what do you get? You get an email from me. I give you a link, and I have you get on my calendar. Why do I do that? Why don't I just, why do I say just hop on my calendar? I do that for a couple reasons. Because if someone is really interested in talking, then they'll go ahead and they'll hop on my calendar, and the next thing I know, I have an appointment. Woohoo! And I love that. I love that, right? If they say they want to talk to me, but something inside of them is a little bit reluctant about talking with me, for whatever reason, no judgment, then they may not hop on that calendar, right? That's the first thing. And so if they don't hop on my calendar, then they are not interested. So my personal rule of thumb is if someone says like, yeah, talk, because sometimes people do need reminding. Some people, depending, again, sometimes people are very busy or they think about it, or some people are, they know they want to do this, they really want to do this, but they're nervous. And it's like, oh my God, I don't expect, whatever goes through their head. What was going through your head? So, I mean, it was easy. We're talking about market research, so it becomes a lot easier, but you just don't know what's going through people's heads. So I do what I call three times the charm, or three strikes you're out. So if somebody says, yes, I'd like to talk to you, great. Listen, just hop on my calendar. I send the link to the calendar. If I haven't heard from them, I will follow up. It's like, hey, just want to make sure you got the link and it worked okay. So go ahead and give them the link again. Hop on my calendar. Looking forward to talking to you. Second time, and it depends. And it depends. Or of course, everything depends. But for the most part, hey, and if I don't hear again, I say hi, just checking in. If you're still interested in talking to me, if you're still interested in talking to me, I'm interested in talking to you. Just hop on my calendar. I haven't heard back. I don't see an appointment. Blah blah blah. Whatever I say, right? Boom. Second time. Oh, and I'll say, at the end of the second time, I'll also say, I'll follow up with you one more time. And because I don't want to bother you. That's what, it's like, I'll follow up with you one more time because I don't want to bother you. I don't want to be a nuisance. And it's okay if you're not interested in talking to me, but I will follow up with you one more time, but that's it. And then I will follow up a third time. Sometimes the fact that I say, I'm only going to follow up with you one more time because I don't want to be a pest, and I don't want to bother you, or whatever I say, however it comes out. Oftentimes that will, if they're really interested, but they were nervous and they're putting it off because they put everything off and everything else because, well, they're too busy and yada, yada. We all know the story, right? Then that might prompt them. My third time, I say, hi, it's Lee. This is, I thought that thought you were interested in talking, and, we were talking, there's no pressure, no nothing. It's just a conversation. Helps me help you because it helps me, helps you. You get some benefit, you get some value out of it. And for me, I get to further my mission. That's it. Because it's true. I will pretty much talk to anybody because it will further, as long as it can further my mission and help them, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I was like, and again, it's pretty concise, so I'm just kind of off my top of my head right now because it's the flow, right? But the third time, I was like, hey, it's the third time that this is the last time that I'll reach out to you. Here's the link one more time. I'm very interested in talking to you. If you're not interested to talk to me, I wish you all the success in the world. Let me tell you something. That number 3, that third time's a charm, works a lot. But if it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's okay, right? That would be exit strategy for them. That's the exit number 1. They don't get on my calendar. Now it's like, so then they do get on my calendar and we're all set up and everything else. So sometimes, depending, what I will do is I will then ask them, I'll send them a survey, I'll send them a questionnaire, I'll give them 3 questions, whatever, I'll send them something. And just so I can be prepared when we're talking, so I can understand more about their business and I can learn about them. So I'm prepared and I have an idea of what their biggest challenge is. I can start thinking about it, right? I mean, it's not exact, but I can still start thinking about it. So then I will send them something again to get to know them and for them to get to know me, because they'll see by the questions that I'm asking how I ask them and how I phrase them, right? Now, they've gotten on my calendar, and I've sent them some questions. This I didn't do with you because it was just market research and it was pretty simple. And it can be that simple, right? But I will, I'll send them questions. Now, if I don't get the questionnaire back, then same process, 3 times the charm or 3 strikes, you're out. I go through the same thing. Because, again, the only out I will give them if they don't do that is if, in fact, they are time crunched. And what I say, the last one, if it's a time issue for doing it, I totally get that. Just let me know and let's see what we can do. because that's true. Because right when you're overwhelmed and you're in time, he's like, yo, I don't have time to answer 3 questions. So that's the only out that I really give people, because that's the challenge, right? And if it's otherwise they can't be bothered, then bye, and that's okay. You know what? I always say, especially when I get my questionnaire, I'll put a link to it, so you might be interested in doing it yourself. I know that if they just go through that questionnaire and they do nothing else, it gets them thinking, right? It gets them thinking, and it gets them thinking, and they will get benefit. Just like going through the market research questions, right? You got benefit and you got value because it gets you thinking. So anytime it gets you thinking, that's a good thing, because you're going to discover things and understand things which you may have not thought of before. And then, of course, once you know them, you can never not know them. So either way, it's fine. So consider that my questionnaire was the 8 questions that I asked you. And we talked on the phone, on the Zoom call. All right, so now we go through that. Next step, Zoom a bit. Zoom. I am a big, all right, I'll do Skype or whatever, but I like the visual. I feel the visual is very important, because then I become real. You become real, and it's just very important. And the fact that we can do this and it's easy and it's simple is great. And I have this on the phone because I have had many, well, right, even you. I mean, I've had many a Zoom call from a phone where I'm not on the phone, but when someone else is on the phone, and so it works. So then we have the conversation. Part 4 is all about that conversation. Okay, so we're not going to go through that now. And then after that, boom, it's like, yes, let's do this, yay! And we get going right away. So we start with hello, and then we go to getting on my calendar. Then we go from some questions, and then you answer some questions, and then we have a conversation, and then it's like, hello. So you can see that there are opportunities for everybody to get out. They can actually get out. They can decide to leave right after hello, and they can never get on the calendar. They can decide to leave after getting on the calendar, but not being ready to do the questions. It's all about being ready. Again, I understand that no one's actually really ready. We're never ready. It's like we're never ready really for this and everything else, and it's difficult. But some people become ready and are more open to it than others. And if you're really not open to it, it's not my job to make you open to it. Does that make sense? Because here's what's going to happen. Anytime that we try to make it our job, and we're going to get more in this when we're talking about the sales conversation, when we start talking about objections and everything else, and how to avoid them. But it's just not my job. And I have found anybody who I've had the conversation with, and me, I get crazy. I'm passionate because I can see how I can help them. I know what it's like, and so I'm excited and I'm passionate. But if going through the conversation with me, they can't see it, it's not my job to make them see it at that time. I won't try to convince people of anything ever, because the times where it wasn't even convincing, but I guess they felt that they were being convinced, they weren't the best clients, right? It starts how you do anything, it's how you do everything. So if you're having trouble with people through your flow, your process before they become a client, you're going to have problems with them once you're a client. Just letting you know. So this is why it's okay. It's okay, right? So that is my flow in a nutshell. And that is when I'm actually talking to someone. And what I might do, if you're interested, and I'm sure if you are, and anybody who wants to be more online and who wants to understand what you do, is like, I'm just going to talk about it right now, what the difference is versus a real, human interaction versus an automated interaction. The process is pretty much the same, more or less. But before they get there's just a few more steps before they get on my calendar. And what are those steps? It's generally a correspondence back and forth. It usually, it depends. It depends. But generally, there'll be 3 correspondences, maybe like an e-course, like, oh, so the people who are not going through Profit Zen, this is a good example. The people who are not going through Profit Zen, but who are still wanting to come to Profit Zen Live, they're going to go through that kind of automated process. So what they're going to do is they're going to raise their hand, and then instead of getting on my calendar, they're going to receive 3 emails, because it's a 3-part e-course called The 3 Keys to Business Eve. So then they'll get each key, and guess what? You already know the 3 keys. Where are you? Where do you need to be? And filling the gap. So those are the 3. And then what they do is that they will also get a 4th, which is a master class, which is the Path to Profit Zen. So that will give them the whole context and everything else. Are they going to have the same depth or really understanding? No, but they will definitely have enough. And actually, some of your discovery sheets and exploratories come from that e-course. So they'll have enough. So, but that's an automated. So as I said, they'll say, yes, I'm interested. They're going to click a link, and then they go into my system. I use Kartra for this, okay? You might use what you want, but I use Kartra. And I use Kartra, so they come in and they opt in, and then they go on a list, and then they go into what is called a sequence. And then the sequence begins and sends them the 3 over a course of a week. I think about a week. You know, every other day they'll send them another video, another lesson, and they're all on the same page and everything else. And then they get the master class for the Path to Profit Zen. Now, because the only thing that they're going to do is decide whether or not they want to come to Profit Zen Live or not, that's all that's going to be offered there. Normally, if it was something like that, and it was like a lower end program, simple program or something like that, lower end, like this program, Profit Zen, will maybe automate it at some point, or maybe a more lighter version. The 3 Keys to Business Ease is definitely going to be automated, and with the masterclass, it's going to be completely automated. Then they come through and they go through, and that's how it works. And the only thing that can be offered is Profit Zen Live through that program. And I think that's what I might be doing. I don't know. We'll see. I digress. Anyway, so that's just the difference. But what's important is that they need to get to know me, right? I need to become a human being to them. Like you and I are having this conversation right now. I have to be having a conversation with them throughout that automated process that helps them learn and everything else. And if they can hop into a group, then they can hop into my group and they can ask questions and things like that. And that's where the relationship begins. All right. So that is the difference, and that is really it. So it's time to explore. You're not even going to get a sheet for this because it's just more thinking, right? And then just plotting out. Think about what your enrollment flow is. What I will do is I'll put a document in under here, under the video here, that's kind of lays out my flow, right? And I'll even do a little extra bonus on if it's automated, right? So I want you to think about your flow, and then I want you to just write it out, and what are the different steps and things like that. And a bonus is start thinking about how long on average your flow is. Is it a day, a week, etc. My flow, from start to finish, from where somebody raises their hand to somebody becomes my client, depending on what we're doing and where we're going and what I'm offering, and all that. It's always depending, right? But for the most part, it's less than a week. Could be a day, but it's generally less than a week. Because again, I want people who are ready. You could be nervous, you could be scared, but you need to be at the point where you're ready to do something, because it's not my job to make you ready, right? And clearly you are, and that's why you're here. So that is the flow of your enrollment process. So I hope you like it. Have fun with it. Again, so what happens in all those steps, right? Again, it's all about building relationship, being of value, and providing value and being of service, right? We are serving, we are giving them value, and we're building relationship. So whether or not they get to that last conversation or not, it's all good. It's all good, right? So on that note, it's time for you to fly, and namaste, beloved ones. I will see you in part 4 of 4. Bye. Oops. Ciao.